Okay, good morning. I would like to call the Wednesday, August 25th DAC meeting to order. We will begin with roll call. Haley Dellery, present. Stephen Kroll will be filling in for Joseph Cologne today. Stephen Kroll.
Present.
Danny McElmurray. Danny McElmurray is absent. Eleanor Burke.
Present.
Miguel Viteri. I was able to see him on video, so present. Lewis Haywood.
Present.
And Lindsay Glatz. Lindsay is absent. I'm sorry, I think I was muted. The public comment form link is available at nola.gov/CPC and will be available until the end of the 5-minute recess, after which time public comments will be read into the record as part of the consideration of dockets. One item on today's agenda has been withdrawn, item number 5 for zoning docket 7821 for a property at 1320 North Broad Street. This has been withdrawn because it's in a full control HDLC district. We will begin with the presentation of dockets. The second item on today's agenda is the reconsideration of design review 4321 for a property at 3200 St. Bernard Avenue. Joseph Cologne is the planner assigned to this case, and we have Seneca Toussaint signed up to speak on behalf of this application. Seneca, you will now have up to 10 minutes to present.
Okay, thanks, y'all. My name's Seneca Toussaint with Laterra Engineering, and I also have the Jose Barrow, the landscape architect for the project, on the call, and the architect Daniel Parrish should be on the call as well. But this is a resubmittal. We submitted plans for the Masonic Hall project a couple months ago, and we made revisions based on the last DAC call. And so this is our resubmittal with the revised parking area and modifications to the building as requested, and sidewalks. So Daniel, are you on the call? Jose, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Which Daniel were you asking for? Me?
Daniel Parrish, or the architect?
No.
Okay. But yeah, but that's all we really have. We made the requested revisions, and we wanted to see if there's any additional comments or our path forward for the project.
Okay, if that's the end of your presentation, is there any comments from the committee? If not, we'll move on to the next.
Can you hold on for a second? Because I'm trying to find on the agenda, did we have the landscape plan? There was only one page on there was only one sheet on the web link.
That's correct. We noticed that there was only one sheet uploaded, and so now
Yeah, they were.
Sharing is the set that was uploaded to safety and permits.
The landscape plan was submitted to Seneca prior to the due date.
Yeah, and we submitted the entire package of the entire drawing set, architectural, civil, landscape, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all as one packet. We to get it on one stop, I think I split it in the day of this meeting.
That's correct. And those drawings are what Stephen is flipping through right now. Do you have a page number? I know there were 2 documents uploaded to safety and permits. So we have a part 1 and a part 2. Do you know what sheet number the landscape plan is on so we can flip to it?
I'm sorry, I'm driving, guys. 1 second. Yeah, they were right. They were right after the.
Haley, what's I don't have the second packet or
Okay.
the second of the 2 PDFs displayed here. I'm gonna need to pull it. You want to move on to item 3 and then come back to this one? I need to download that second.
Alrighty. Item 3 is for design review 7821 for a property at Berman Park at 2529 General Meyer. This is for a new aquatics facility, and it's only for DAC review only. And we have Bahare Javadi signed up to speak on behalf of this application. Bahare, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Thank you, Haley. Yeah, so this project is for an existing pool at Berman Memorial Park, where there's an existing recreational center that's not part of the scope. So if you go back to the existing photos, just to get some context. So this is the site. So the existing pool has been in disrepair and has been underutilized for a couple years now. And so the project to renovate it is to both enclose it so that it can be used year round, and also to program it so that it's further activated and used more widely by the public and serves NORD in the ways that they need to use it. So, so you can see from this axon here, again, the existing rec center is to the north, and then there is a shared courtyard in between the rec center and the natatorium complex. And so the entry sequence is, you come up this existing sidewalk, and then we have an entrance gate, and you enter into the entry court and make your way into the pool lobby area. And so the enclosed area that you see is the indoor pool portion. And so what we're doing here is we are within the existing pool shell, which is quite large. We are building a new, smaller pool that is 6 lanes, and also has the ability to, with lane dividers, be separated into multiple zones for other recreational purposes. And that area is enclosed with the pool deck and the conditioned locker rooms and support spaces. And then to the east of the site, which is what you're seeing, at the top of this axon, is an outdoor splash pad, which is it also falls within what was the existing pool shell. And that's just another programmatic element to activate the space. And there's an outdoor patio there. And then there's an existing restroom building that you see at the top there. That is, we have as an ad alternate, if budget allows, we would be renovating that restroom building to be a ADA restroom and storage building. So if you go through the plans, I can give you a little more context. So these are some renderings we have. So the first rendering is the main entry sequence up that existing sidewalk. So again, you have the rec center to the left and the natatorium to the right. And then we have the signage for the facility integrated into a decorative painted steel fence that would match the design of the decorative fencing that you see at the perimeter of this site currently. And then the image below that is the splash pad behind the enclosed pool building. And then we have these glass garage doors on 3 sides of the natatorium, so that we're maintaining this kind of indoor-outdoor feeling. And the idea is that during the months of the year that weather allows, that these garage doors would just be open. So it still feels like an outdoor pool, but that is protected from the elements with a covered roof. And then these would be closed in the wintertime only, because we have heating in this space, but no cooling. And then you see there's a translucent portion of the roof. So the design is essentially at the base of the building. We are using colored masonry, CMU block, up to about 11'4", and then the roof system is a tensile fabric structure that has steel structure, and then is finished with a tensile fabric liner on the exterior and interior. And so this liner can be colored in different ways. And so this translucent portion that you see in the roof on the inside is a translucent portion of the roof that allows even more light in. So that space would really be flooded with light and feel like a very indoor-outdoor space. You can go to the next sheet. These are just some more views of that interior. So you get a sense of that light, airy feeling that we're trying to get in here. And then these are just some conceptual renderings of the lighting concept. So at the exterior, it'll be more lit than this. This is just really to highlight the uplighting that we have at the entry fence. And then within the pool deck area, we are mounting uplights at pilasters around the perimeter of the pool deck that shine up to the tensile fabric roof and then bounce back into the space. And again, it's going to be more illuminated than this. This is really just conceptually showing how the light is bouncing off surfaces. You can go on to the next views. So these are, again, just some additional interior views, the connection between the splash pad and the pool deck. And then this is our demo plan. So you can see that the footprint of that existing pool shell, and then we're, as far as what we're demolishing, we're just removing some portions of the existing pool deck, and then we'll be building. If you go to the next one, I guess it would actually be clear in the next plan. Yeah, so we're building the new smaller pool shell within that existing shell, and then we'll be pouring a topping slab at the pool deck. And then the splash pad to the east that you can see there. And actually, I think that these plans might be, I sent an updated set for this submission. I mean, it's not a huge deal. This has most of the information we need to look at, but this doesn't look like the set that I submitted for this for August. This looks like the one I submitted when we were on the docket last time, but we can move on, and if any, yeah, I have the documents pulled up on my screen if we need to look at anything else. But you can, yeah, this is the construction documents that I had sent a reduced set that has more specific information for the DAC. That doesn't appear to be this. But you can see here, so we'd enter in the lobby area. This is just an enlarged view of our support spaces. And then you'd enter into the pool deck, and then we have locker rooms and pump room area to the left there. I don't think this set has the landscape plan that we had included.
Baharay, I would just like to point out that you have 1 more minute of your 10 minutes to present. So if there's any highlight you want to jump.
Okay. I wanted to touch on the landscape plan that I had submitted for this docket, but it doesn't look like it's in here. Would it be possible for me to share my screen?
No, we're not able to do that today, but we can coordinate with you in Parks and Parkways for after this.
Okay, understood. If you jump back to the site plan, I can just walk you through the intention behind the landscape, because we do have a landscape plan that was done by a landscape architect.
And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Dan is our landscape architect. So in terms of landscaping, there are some existing Chinese elm trees in that entry court, and 3 of them were damaged in the storms that we're planning on replacing. And then we have stormwater management features.
I'd like to point out that that concludes your 10 minutes.
Okay.
But if the committee members have any further questions.
I have questions.
And may I say, Danny, just so I could point out to Stephen, in the G Drive, we do have the document that Baharay submitted. If you wanted to pull that up, I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is not the correct set that I submitted. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the landscape plan.
Yeah, I mean, I'll reserve questions on the landscape plan other than the fact that I need to see the latest version of it, and also make sure that there's a tree protection plan. I'm not sure that those Chinese elms are the right tree for that location, just because they do send a lot of litter into the pool area. But I understand the desire to match existing ones. My main question is about the actual pool interior. You said you don't have air conditioning for that space, but do you have a dehumidifier system? Because
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
All right, and then where's the expanded parking for this pool?
There's actually an existing parking lot
Yeah, I know, but where,
that you can't see here, and I don't believe there's an additional parking requirement here.
it's not a requirement, but I'm looking at the number of users that are potential for this greatly expanded, the offerings of what this pool is going to offer with the splash pad and the pool and everything. I'm just curious as to the thoughts on this being much more popular than it is right now, because it's nothing right now, and that parking lot is not sufficient for a heavily used pool. So is the thought going to be to park on the street and just have street parking, or not the street, but the park drive itself? So that was, what's the thinking on that?
Sure, that's it's a good question, Daniel. Yes, it's a good question. So in addition to the existing parking lot, there is a ton of available street parking around the perimeter of the park. And honestly, anytime I've gone there, there's so much parking. I don't think it's going to be a problem parking in that area. It's pretty, there's a lot of spaces to park very close by.
Hey, Baha, I can, this is Jen Lelos, project manager with Capital Projects for this project. I just want to respond to that a little bit too. I mean, we can look into it a little bit with Nord, but as y'all probably know, this is the second time that we have done a pool project over at Berman Park. And part of the reason the original natatorium project came in so far over the budget we had was because we had to add so much additional paving and parking lot element to it. So part of the benefit of enclosing the existing pool versus building a brand new natatorium was to sort of save on all of the exterior elements of parking lot and infrastructure and everything like that. So I think that, the pool isn't changing size, but I agree that, it's going to be more desirable to go there. So we can certainly look into parking options with Nord.
Yeah, I think just making sure that you have, that you understand that people have to park on the street to access this, and they're going to want to park on both sides, and manage the expectations of the pool patrons through the design, making sure that they know exactly where to come in. And, signage wise, wherever they park, they know that they have a clear route to entering into, because you've got your signed entry only on one side, but people can park all the way around the building. So how do they get to it from the east side of the building and the pool versus the west side where the main entry sign is?
Right. And so, and the main entry is on the west side of the building. So you would actually drive around, and then the signage that we have above the entry gate is prominent enough that people will know where to go.
Hey, this is Miguel. Can I chime in for a sec? And also speaking to Jen, the site plan, the general site plan could expand to indicate a little bit more what the streets and the parking are doing. I think that would help in resolving the situation. I think we all know the facility Berman, and it is sorely in need of a master plan to try to identify all the logistics of parking that are available. I believe there are plenty of parking spaces, but it would be helpful with each of these projects to sort of expand the footprint of the general area, especially if it's nearly adjacent to that rec center. And just for accuracy's sake, identifying parking available, so it's very evident. And that way, with subsequent projects that are sort of parcel projects, we can eventually come up with a master plan that's logical for all the facilities. That's all. That's all my comment.
Sure. That makes sense.
Any further committee comments?
I'll just say, I know we don't have the current set, so I do want to see that before y'all go into permitting. I think y'all are already at that permitting stage, so I'm looking at it right now in Llama, and not Llama, sorry, another project, but I do want to look at it before y'all go too much further.
Sure. Yeah. We were getting ready to submit for permit this week. But yeah, I mean, Haley, I think you said you see the set that I had submitted on your drive, so maybe that could just be distributed.
Yeah, Haley, it's very difficult for me to access your G drive, so you have to send me a different link, I think.
Okay, I'll send it in an email.
Thanks.
Alrighty, so if there's no further committee discussion, we're going to move on to item number 4, zoning docket 7321 for a property at 6600.
Wait, do you want to, sorry to interrupt, do you want to move back to item 2? The materials that we were waiting on are now displayed, I think.
Okay, that works. So we're going to jump back to item number 2, design review docket 4321 for 3200 St. Bernard. Seneca, you can now present.
Yeah, we're still here. I think we're just ready to answer any questions. Jose is, I think we're ready to answer any questions you guys may have.
Can you go to 15 of 34, please? Jose, this is really for you. There's only one public street tree, and so I would like to see some of those trees. I mean, you've got plenty of trees on site. Can you just move some of them to the public realm so they become
Sure,
public street
that would
trees?
be no problem.
Okay. Especially since it is a three-sided, you're going to need trees on each of the three sides: Spray Place, Florida, and St. Bernard.
Okay,
The live oaks are correct for St. Bernard, though. So if you can just move them into the public realm and then
Okay.
send it to me, I'll take a look at it and update the. I can send it through Llama to update. But my only question for y'all is, how do people move from the turnaround circle? I'm assuming it's a drop-off circle. Where's the paving between that circle and the sidewalk that leads you into the building? It looks like you have to jump a curb.
No, there's a ramp, and elevation wise, we're not doing curb and gutter or anything. It's all going to be approximately there's not going to be a drop or anything, and we do have a little accessible area, our ramp, if you will, our entrance to the sidewalk closer to the roadside.
I see the ramp, but I'm talking about like where people actually, like if you've got more than one car and somebody's getting out, they're going to be getting out kind of in that dead area between where you've got a little bit of curbing and the sidewalk right there in the middle of the front of the building. They're just going to be walking across that. They're going to be stepping up over that curb. I'm assuming that's a curb, the way it's drawn. And it's like, so why isn't it just the drop off tied into the sidewalk right there as well?
Yeah, we can tie it in right there. But like I said, it's all going to be at pretty much at the same grade, if you will. Consistent slope across.
I mean, you just got these very sharp slivers of kind of landscape area that you can't really do anything with. So why not just make it where there's a paved connection between the drop off and the sidewalk around the building?
Okay, we can do that.
And can that sidewalk from the building connect to the sidewalk on the street on Freight Place?
That side, I mean, I'll definitely take a look. I was more concerned about the ADA, because we are coming up right there.
But you have no sidewalk connections from this public street to the building.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll add one there and ramp it as we need to.
And what did safety and permits say about the sidewalk along Florida Avenue? Are you responsible for putting that in?
That's on the north side?
Yeah.
Yeah, we extended it to the property boundary as requested. To our approximate property boundary.
Okay. So please make sure that the landscape plan shows that, because that's going to gauge where the trees go. So you're going to make sure your base plans are all the same.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not seeing that.
Elevations. I didn't see them in the drawings that we were given.
I'm sorry, say again.
I'm asking the staff to put the elevations of the building in the screen because they weren't included in the set that we were given previously.
If y'all have page numbers that you can tell us to jump to, that would be helpful. Okay, we found it.
I think that we had made some comments before about, the window to wall ratio being very low, and it still seems like this building isn't really giving back much to the street in terms of design intent.
Okay. Daniel Parrish, the architect. I talked to him this morning, or we were texting this morning. I knew he was supposed to be on the call, but he'd made those revisions to the. But we can look into those. I don't know what happened. I don't think he's on the call.
I guess, it's a pretty wide, flat building with very little going on architecturally. It might be helpful to, do some setbacks in the front elevation just to break up the massing a little bit. They don't have to be big setbacks, but perhaps the entry portion of it could come forward a little bit and have some articulation so that there is some architectural interest and relief to what is essentially a box with windows punched in it at this point.
Okay.
Is that stucco at the upper portion of it?
I believe so.
Okay. So my recommendation would be that the window sizes are increased and that the massing be manipulated to increase the depth and interest of the building.
Okay.
Have y'all thought about having, like, I'm looking at the Florida Street elevation, just the north side elevation. And right there, it's a big blank canvas that is just waiting for graffiti. Have y'all thought about doing some kind of public art on that face? Like an outdoor mural on both the north and south faces where there's nothing, there's no windows, there's only one door.
We have not, but we definitely can.
You're gonna have to do something, or somebody's gonna do it for you.
Okay.
I think we talked about these being blank walls on facing streets, but your address is St. Bernard, so this is technically a side, I think.
Okay.
I have a few more comments about the site plan.
Okay.
So starting on Frey, what I would do, I mean, your driveways are a little under detailed in terms of that elevation change and curbing. If you can tolerate it, what I would do is just tie into the back of those mountable curbs that are out there now. That's what we would normally do. Otherwise, you're gonna have to show a lot more of the curbing that's being proposed with the elevation difference between the pavement, between like the sidewalk and driveway and the ground around it. But the simplest thing to do, and the way to kind of tie in the sidewalk in front of on the St. Bernard side with the street, is just to keep that sidewalk running straight through, repaving it as necessary, and then you just tie that circular driveway into the back of that sidewalk, and then you don't have any elevation change on your sidewalk. And then you should be able to just tie it in with the building sidewalk. And then on the Florida Avenue side, you got a mountable curb there too, so you could do the same thing I'm talking about. But you got an issue with this median opening. Florida Avenue's got this little concrete median. And what we don't want is people like cutting across that median. Basically, the median's not lined up with it. The driveway's not lined up with the median opening. So normally we'd like to see like a 30-foot median opening across from that driveway, basically so that people aren't cutting across and then having to go against traffic just to get in there, as you can imagine. So we don't want that offset driveway. It could be you're pulling back that nose, but it's such a short stretch of median there that I'm not sure, whether that would work or not. So, we're going to need a little more review on this. And then I'd ask, is it going to be permitted in terms of like the zoning? And I'm sorry if we went through this last time, but is the parking and dumpster allowed in that 20-foot building setback line on Florida?
I assume we could.
Yeah, I believe the answer is yes in this zoning district. Absolutely for the dumpster, not sure about.
Okay, well, that's all I got. I mean, yeah, I just might need, we're going to need some more review at DPW just in terms of that access on Florida and the way that median is there.
Okay. I'll definitely take a look at that. See what we need to do.
Okay, are there any further committee comments? If not, we'll move on to item number 4, zoning docket 7321 for a property at 6600 Franklin Avenue. We have Tyler Marquette signed up to speak on behalf of the application, and Valerie Goins is the staff member. Valerie.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say Tyler Marquette's here.
All righty, thanks. As a reminder, following the staff presentation, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present. Do we have Valerie on the phone?
I can do a quick presentation. This is a new construction self-storage facility on Franklin Avenue, just north of Leoncy Simon, adjacent to a shopping complex that's anchored by Rouse's. The development as self-storage is a conditional use in the district, and that's largely due to design considerations that you get with storage facilities where there tends to be minimal transparency. In terms of zoning requirements, there are transparency requirements at the ground floor level, not at the upper floor. As well as kind of standard setback height, parking, etc. Tyler, one comment is that the plan is showing parking kind of straddling the property line. That's, it's not ideal to have the parking spaces going across the property line. It is allowable by zoning, but it will require kind of an easement perpetually for those spaces because they're not counted as on-site spaces, not entirely within the site. So I would suggest either moving the property line over to include the spaces, perhaps make them parallel if there's enough room, or just plan on kind of having secure, ongoing permanent arrangements for joint access of that space by properties.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, and so that's it for the site plan presentation. Floor plans are what you would expect, three floors divided into storage units. And these are the elevations which show fairly significant fenestration on the first floor, which is what's required, and then and Tyler, maybe you or your architect can speak to this more. I don't know if those are false windows on the upper floors. But certainly, as this note indicates, the transparency requirement on the ground floors. And that's it for the staff presentation.
Okay, thank you. Tyler, you now have 10 minutes.
Great, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, as Stephen was saying, it's a all interior, climate controlled, first class self-storage facility that'll be managed by Extra Space. Approximately 840 storage units with 884,000 rentable square feet. I believe that our architect, Frank, and Tyler Jones from our design builder, Arco Murray, should be on here, as well as James Montgomery from the developer, Vidad Real Estate. So I don't know if any of those folks are on and if they can address Stephen's question about the second floor windows.
Yes, this is Frank Weber. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So the second floor windows, those are transparent. If you go to the renderings, those are what's called the display doors. So you're looking into a corridor and you see those doors. It's essentially just a lit corridor. Occupants in the building do not have access to that, so you will not see anyone moving around their goods and storing them. It's just lit to kind of help identify the building as a storage building. But yes, those are transparent glass, and they will be lit during the night.
And Stephen, getting back to those parking spaces that are straddle the property line, there is an existing easement in place that provides for cross parking, cross access. As you said, it's a shopping center, and so our plan was to modify that easement in order to additionally provide for these parking spaces. Will that work from your perspective?
Yeah, that will work. What would be helpful is if, and you don't have to do this now, but the plans we get for final approval after the council acts, if that there can sort of be a note on the plan that references that, help our record as well.
Great. And in terms of the timing for that easement being signed, it requires multiple parties signature. I assume that the final easement will also just be a post council approval matter. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I don't know if anybody has any questions for our design team.
I do. Can we go to the renderings, please? I was thinking it might make more sense, since you're accentuating that corner of the building with the windows on the upper stories, if it would make sense to wrap the glazed doors around so that they are also existing below the windows on the drive elevation. Yeah, right there. It seems odd that it's not carrying through on the elevation. And I think that would make the, corner of it have more balance and be a little more interesting.
I agree. I want to chime in as well. This is Miguel. I have one additional comment, Eleanor, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Can we go to the parking lot view? Okay, there's a change of material occurring, I guess, in the rear of the building. So I have two questions. One, the change of material in the transition between the brick and the change of material, and also the vertical expanse of what appears to be more of a concrete block material. Can you talk about those two items, I guess, separately?
Yes, I can answer that question. So the backside addresses the existing loading area to the grocery store there. That is changed to metal siding. By the van there, you can see that's the recessed loading area. What is not included in the rendering, there will be a security fence beyond the brick, where the brick transfers to the metal siding. What I think you might be referring to as the block, where the Extra Space logo is, that is vertical metal siding, and then that is the stair tower. It returns a corner because there's a slight recess there at the arcade. the arcade responds to the one-story shopping center in terms of rhythm. The columns are simple rectangles.
Okay, I have a follow-up comment. So the staircase component, the change of material appears to be somewhat abrupt, and it's a little bit monolithic. So I'm wondering if there's a way to integrate a little bit better with the brick. And similar comment, the transition in the rear from the brick to the metal panel that's darker. Also, if there could be a way to kind of transition in a less abrupt fashion where it appears that it's a facade that's been attached to, you know, sort of a different mass of a different material.
Understood. Some of the infill on the second and third floor, that is metal panel. So maybe we can do it with texture and color and tie those two together in that manner. Yeah,
maybe there's a way to bring the material so it's consistent in the two areas, and maybe that's a way to handle it. Eleanor, do you have any comments about what I said with the white metal panel, the color, and maybe the presence of it being a little bit monolithic compared to the overall articulation of the bricked areas?
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have a question about, we only have 2 renderings, but there's a huge missing element of seeing what the corner looks like as you're coming into, you know, where the ramp is up on top of Rouse's. That Franklin Avenue is really heavily traveled when UNO is going to be back and have the arena open. So I'm kind of curious as to what that corner is going to look like with everybody passing by. Not that corner, but the other corner. What does it look like?
Yes, Daniel, we have elevations shown. We can set up, this is all constructed in Revit, so we can set up a rendered view from the backside and provide that to the council.
Well, that is the west elevation, so it's pretty clear what you're gonna see.
Yes, correct. So the brick does return for about 20 feet, and then we go to a metal siding, and the massing, you know, as it comes around the corner to the loading, it does step back. So that building mass is broken up. No, it's the north elevation is what you'll see coming down Franklin.
Yeah, it's kind of, I get that that's not the huge traffic corridor, but it's going to be highly visible on a regular periodic basis. Seems rather understated compared to the east and south elevations.
Okay, well, I've got a comment. Going back to the parking in the drive aisle, when you put a scale to that behind, basically in between the curb at the mouth and the other, you know, in the existing curb, or the other existing curb, that creates a width of 20 feet. And the CZO requires 24 feet for 2-way drive aisles. When you get to the angle parking, which is 60-degree angle parking, it doesn't really matter what the angle is. You still have to have 24 feet for two-way drive aisles inside a parking area. And this is 18 feet behind those parking stalls. So I don't think it meets the zoning ordinance. And then going to the other side, to the north side of the site, for whatever reason, I'm not even actually. Do you looking at this survey? is your drawing off from the survey? Because you're off from the street curb line. So I want to make sure that these comments are relevant and it's not just a drawing error. If you look at page 6 of the PDF, they're not, some kind of alignment's not right.
Louis, I believe we're accurate to the survey. What you're seeing below is a photo, an aerial photo that had the boundary condition on it. And that's where the discrepancy is. But in terms of the boundary condition and the curbs, we are accurate with the survey.
Can you zoom in? So you're saying that you did a drawing off of a photo, off of an aerial?
I used the photo as an underlay. The property line is based on the survey.
All right, but disregarding the property line, if you look at the survey and your drawing, the curb lines are off by a few feet. Like can you zoom in on the southeast corner? Zoom in real tight. All right, you see how that curb line's off? Is that your intent?
I don't
Or do
believe
you
so.
actually intend to use the existing curb lines?
We intend to use the existing curb line. This is the landscape plan, so I can't answer to that. But yes, the intent is to salvage the existing curb line.
And that's the same on like the north side? You're not changing the drive aisles or anything?
No.
Okay. All right. In that case, I think the drawing's just off. And if you're using the existing curb lines, then you can disregard the previous comments. All right. Yeah, it was just a landscape plan issue. Seems like. Okay. All right. No comments from me then.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like there's no further comments. We'll move on to item number 6, zoning docket 7921 for a property at 1111 Milan Street. This is an affordable housing plan development that was submitted by the Orleans Parish School Board. It requires DAC review because it has more than 40,000 square feet in building area. And we have Corey Rizzalara signed up to speak on behalf of this application, and this has not yet been assigned to a CPC staff member yet. Stephen, did you want to give a brief overview of this one?
Sure. So this is right. This is McDonough 7 School. The school board owns the property. They are contemplating doing a property swap with Hanno, so Hanno would take ownership of it. Adaptively reuse the structure for residential units with new construction elements as well. This requires council approval through the Affordable Housing Plan Development process. So this will be going through City Planning Commission and Council. The development is at a relatively early stage of design. So do expect that there may be some change and refinement with time. And so this is really here on a relatively conceptual basis. And Corey, I'll hand it off to you unless anyone has any comments for me.
Thank you, Stephen. Just give a brief overview. If staff could go to the existing site plan drawing, please.
Is this the one you're thinking of, Corey?
Actually, you can just go to the proposed site plan, the next page. That'll work. So if you look at the aerial, that's underneath the proposed line work. The site right now consists of the existing school building at the southeast corner of Chestnut and Milan. The rest of the site is basically all paving except for the southwest corner where there's a play yard with some permeable paving, I believe. There's currently portable buildings behind the school. that's along Chestnut. And then the large chunk of the property that's fronting on Marengo is all paving. That's a play yard and also used as parking. So we're proposing to renovate the existing school building into around 27 elderly low-income units. They vary in size between 700 and 1,000 square feet. And then along the frontages of Marengo and Coliseum, Marengo, we're proposing to construct 4 individual 2-family dwellings. They have a unit on the first floor, a unit on the second floor. Buildings would be paired together and tied together with an exterior stair that accesses the second floor units. That's within the, I guess, the side yards, so as to not show the stair to the frontages of the street. And then there's 2 more of the same duplex units on the corner of Coliseum and Milan. As far as parking, we are providing a 1-to-1 ratio per unit to comply with zoning. We actually have a couple surplus spaces. We separated the parking into 3 areas to kind of consolidate it so that each building can have its own parking area. The bulk of the parking is a 22 space lot that's behind the existing school building. Even though that has 27 proposed units, these would be elderly units, so we don't expect all the residents to have vehicles. Then at the other, behind the 4 units on Marengo, we have 12 parking spaces, and then 7 spaces next to the 2 structures on Coliseum. The parking is accessed by a new curb cut along Coliseum. That's a 1-way curb cut that goes from west to east, travel behind the existing school building. And then you would exit along Chestnut, and that's a new curb cut also. Currently, there are 2 curb cuts on Marengo that would be abandoned and landscaped. And then there's an existing curb cut on Chestnut that backs up to the residential property there, and that would be abandoned also. The dumpster area, we're proposing to go behind one of the residential units along Coliseum, in between that unit and the school building, to shield it as much as possible from view. As far as the design of the new construction, if you go to page, you can go 2 more pages, and that has the exterior elevations and the proposed floor plans for the duplex units. Each one is 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. Have balconies and porches on the front yards to blend in with the neighborhood, match the aesthetic of the neighborhood. And that's a brief rundown.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions for the architect.
Okay.
I didn't see any drawings of the work that's being proposed to the existing structure.
Yeah, it's on the page right after the site plan. It's just a single line drawing showing potential locations for units.
Right, so in terms of the existing structure, will you be retaining the existing windows and refurbishing them?
That is likely the intent. We haven't gotten too far to explore the condition of the windows, but ideally we would like to keep the windows and refurbish them and replace all the glazing.
Okay. And then my other questions are, can we go to the elevations of the new construction? I was wondering if you'd considered a plan that put the stairways in the interior of the building rather than having exterior stairwells.
We can explore that. Just trying to preserve as much square footage for the units as possible. And we wanted to keep the building separate. I guess you're proposing to have a separate stair for each individual building, or would enclosing the center stair be
Well,
ideal?
generally in lots of multifamily houses, typically in New Orleans, there's 2 doors. One goes to the upper unit up a stair, and the other one goes to the lower unit.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that could be integrated into this proposal, so you don't have this exterior stair situation.
Yeah, we can definitely explore that. Buildings might have to get a little bit wider, but yes, we can look at that.
Are these buildings for the elderly?
No, those are currently just for family units. All the elderly currently would be in the existing school building.
What does the accessible unit look like? Because none of these are accessible, fully accessible.
I think right now we're proposing all the accessible ones to be in the existing school building, but we haven't gotten that far down the road yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, wait, let me echo Eleanor. Eleanor, I want to.
I had a couple more comments.
I just want to echo the staircase. The exterior staircase is definitely not a very good use of that space. I agree with that completely.
Okay. It would also be great if columns at the front elevation need to align with the windows. The spaces in between the windows rather than in front of them. And usually porches like this are more useful if they're 6 feet deep. To allow people to actually have, adequate space. And my last question was on the Marengo Street elevation, the historic fence of the school building wraps around that side of the campus. Is it your intention to retain that historic fence and work with it?
Yes, we would definitely retain that. And right now there's a cut through at the north end of the property, and we'd like to slide that down and modify the fence as needed to keep the fence.
Okay, great. That's it for my comments. Thank you.
I have a couple of comments about the landscape. The spacing on the live oaks, I don't know if you can go to that page or not.
You know what the page number is, Danny?
I do not. This will work right there. It's perfect. So if you look along at the top there, you've got 3 live oaks kind of spaced between the buildings. If you don't have driveways, I would say either make that 5 or space those. Actually, you probably need to space it and have 4, but the spacing, they're super tight to each other. You just need to look at the spacing on that. And for your other 3 street exposures, we're trying to get away from having a monoculture for street trees. So we need to see some variety in street tree plantings where there's not an established dominant tree being used historically. And so this kind of mixing that up a little bit. I greatly appreciate the street trees being there. I want to put that out there, but it can't be a monoculture. We're getting away from that because of issues that we're having now with plantings that are monocultures and diseases. And once one's removed, it ruins the effect of having same tree out one after another. That was it for me.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments just real quick. Just what I always say is, you're showing these one-way and arrows. Just make sure on the final site plan, there shouldn't be any markings on the concrete in the public right-of-way. So you shouldn't have any arrows on the sidewalk, no legends on the driveway. Don't have anything there. Put a sign on the fence or something if you need it. Okay. And then let's see. On Marengo, where you're removing the driveways, Just make sure that you are restoring the curb there on Marengo. It looks like it's modular concrete, or like the preformed concrete slabs, which we like to put back if you can find them, but we don't stockpile them, so it's not a huge deal. But you should be restoring the concrete curb. So when you're doing that landscaping, so just make sure you call that out for the contractor, so they don't just kind of saw cut it and then put the, just backfill it. So that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more comments, we will move on to item number 7. This is zoning docket 8521 for a property at 319 North Rendon Street. This is a request for a zoning change from an HURD2 to an HUMU district, along with the request for a conditional use to expand an existing bar up to 10,000 square feet in area. This zoning docket has not yet been assigned to a planner, but we have Stephen if we have any questions, and we have Virginia Damaris signed up to speak on behalf of the application.
Yeah, so Stephen here, I'll just give a quick explanation. So this is Bayou Beer Garden along Norman C. Francis, Bayou Wine Garden along Rendon. What has historically been a parking area in the rear. Since the pandemic began, the bar has used this as outdoor seating area. The effort is to make that permanent in 2 ways. Number 1 is constructing permanent structures, and number 2 is constructing a new parking lot across the street. So there are 2 zoning applications that are submitted to accomplish that. Number 1 would extend the non-residential zoning to include the rear of the site, and then a conditional use to allow the expansion of the existing facility, and then similarly a zoning change for the parking lot site across the street and a conditional use for the parking lot. So that's kind of the high level overview and the drawings, the proposal. I believe that Gunnar Guidry is here, who's architect, as well as Dave Demarest, who is the owner.
Okay, thank you. The applicant now has 10 minutes to present.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously with COVID and everything, we started to see outdoor seating more useful and in need for our project, and so our current parking lot, and we wanted to expand our seating, being that it wasn't being used very much for parking at this point, and so our intent was to just the way the world's going is to kind of expand our seating that way in case anything like this happens again, and that way we can continue to function business. Our current seating inside of our outdoor areas has gone down significantly, so it obviously is tough for business, so that's why we wanted to kind of expand this out into that area. We also have a covering over the area too. I'm sure you're very aware of how much it rains in New Orleans, and so we definitely wanted to be able to still have customers in the area. So this is really an expansion of Bayou Beer Garden. We don't really I know that Stephen had said something about it being next to Bayou Wine Garden, but it's really just an expansion of Bayou Beer Garden in that sense. So we're re-subdividing all the lots together, and then basically just expanding our seating is kind of the idea. So there's the parking across the street was historically light industrial. So there's 3 lots over there that we would like to be able to use for parking, and that's, I'm not sure what else I would say to that. So that's pretty much it what we have. So
I had a question regarding the design of the
Yes.
pavilion. What material?
Gunnar, you want to speak to that?
You're muted.
Gunnar, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about
Gunnar?
that. So yeah, I
Gunnar?
can discuss the design of the site right now as a whole. So with this, we wanted to design like a simple open space pavilion type. So we have that right now with the same proportions of a home. Like the height is 17 feet, the median height is 17'8". Overall height is 22'9". The setback matches the adjacent properties. So we're trying to follow the same guidelines of what the what zoning is right now for the site. So right now we have that open space pavilion. Each side we have the pavilion is going to be more of a metal structure cladded with a fiber cement board. And then the roof is going to be a standing seam roof, and the ceiling below that's going to be more or less just wood panels below that. So it's very simple. And then each side of the pavilion, we have walkways. One side is the walkway from Bayou Beer Garden toward the back, all the way to Rendon. And then the other side would be like Six Tops. And so it's kind of like two small structures on either side of a large pavilion. So we have, and that's most of the design.
So when you say a metal structure clad in hardy board, what does that mean?
Some type of fiber cement boards with larger. I didn't really want to see the typical lines of like a clapboard. I wanted to have more of a larger, the 4x8 panel, that the actual size, like stock sizes that come with fiber cement boards, and cut those to fit the columns as well as the faces and of the rafters above.
So you're seeing, so it's a metal structure that's wrapped in fiber cement board and then painted?
Yes.
And
yes.
Will the structure of the roof be articulated along the sides as rafters?
The front, the height of that rafter will mimic the width of a column, so it'll be more of a very simple pavilion that's kind of very, I think in the drawings they show the width of the columns or depth of the columns are 2 feet, and I think the rafters are about 1.5 feet. So it all depends the size what we choose with this. But we wanted to keep it kind of open air and kind of just very, very light, not too heavy in there.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think the style that we're going for is to match kind of the old wood or the old double. So it very much falls in line with the feeling of the way that Bayou Wine Garden would look next door. And as far as that goes. So it's not to be kind of out of characteristic with kind of the theme that we have so far, which is kind of like older, wood. I don't know if that helps or not.
I think I've got it.
Can you go to the site plan, please?
You can go on the next page. It'll close it up. Yeah.
Well, I need to see, actually it's for both of them, but this is either one. Can you just zoom into the public realm right there? Yeah. What I'm not sure of, and this is what the staff will have to help me with, is I'm assuming that this is zoned a commercial zoning. Am I?
It's a zoning change.
Yeah, so Danny, I think I know where you're going. It will be a commercial zoning. It will not be a commercial zoning that requires street trees, at least as a zoning requirement.
Okay, there's gonna be like a neighborhood commercial or something?
Exactly.
So, okay.
It doesn't preclude street trees, it just doesn't mandate it.
I think street trees, unless you want to have people parking right there on either side, I think it would be a great idea to put street trees in there simply because it's going to help you control the parking that takes place right now in the public right of way versus directing people to this parking lot. I think that would be a very smart way of indirectly controlling your parking traffic.
The street is it's supposed to be torn up by FEMA and put back together with proper sidewalks and everything. So I guess we definitely would work with the city to do that in that case, you know, or their construction crews, because yes. You know,
yeah, I mean, it should be timed with whatever the reconstruction is with the our project, but Louis may know more about that. But I think the restoration of the curbing that's there, but it's just all sunken down.
Yep.
And putting in street trees is going to go a long way to keeping people off of that parking on the sidewalk and in the middle of the street.
Great. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we definitely are for that for sure.
David, this is Stephen, I have a question. You're showing what I believe is the preservation of the existing drive. Is the thought that will be closed in, retained? Will this be used, you know, for loading
I'm sorry.
The enlarged plan. Yeah, the enlarged plan shows that curb actually filled in. So we want to fill that curb in and add the sidewalk across.
Thank you.
Okay, so you got the, all right, so you're saying the larger plan doesn't have that curb cut. You're gonna put curb across it. Maybe we could work with the FEMA project to get that done. I know the FEMA project has the driveway being replaced in the project. So, you know, that could be modified to actually just take out the driveway, I suppose, if we can make it happen. It's easier said than done. But you're planning to take it out, put the sidewalk back, and then replace that area with grass or what?
I believe it was landscaping that we would go for sure. You know, I mean, dressing up the front of it or the back of the, however you want to look at it, is definitely going to be the intent to make it nice. And I presume that there would be a proviso in there for landscaping. Is that correct, Stephen?
So there would be a proviso that you do landscaping as required by the zoning ordinance. It's not going to require street trees because that's not required as a baseline requirement, but the council could add that requirement if it elected to.
Yeah. I mean, just to let you know, we would probably go above and beyond with the landscaping of whatever the city wanted us to do, just because it's, you know, it's in some way a front entrance. If you want to, I mean, it's a back entrance, but it's, yeah. So we would definitely want to, you know, take any thing from the city and then hopefully even add on to it. So.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, one thing to note on your construction plan, when you do go in for permitting, the existing tree that is out there, I think there's one or two of them, make sure they're marked on the plan and they need to be marked for tree protection. And you can reference the city's details, but there has to be some kind of reference for tree protection and preservation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have just one more quick question about the site plan. If you look at that, you got that covered walkway running along the side of the property. It looks like it's got two sets of roof supports, and at least two of those are blocking like walkways, one at the end of it, and then one closer to North Rendon where that slanted sidewalk runs through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're in a very early stage of design right now, so we're gonna definitely kind of like adjust the spacing of those columns to fit the walkways.
All right. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll move on to item number 8, design review docket 9021 for a property at 6501 Morrison Avenue. We have Earl Lario signed up to speak on behalf of the application, and Aspen Nero is the CPC staff member. As a reminder, following Aspen's presentation, Earl, you will have 10 minutes to present.
So yeah, this is another ice machine. So it's a vending machine. We've seen some of these before at DAC. These have been coming through, a lot of them from Earl. And just a heads up, the zoning administrator has actually made an interpretation about these since we had conflicting reviews because the CZO kind of has a designation for an ice vending machine. There's been an interpretation of how we review these. They're only being allowed in certain commercial districts. So this one is actually permitted in the proposed district it's in. It's also acting as an accessory use to a gas station. So these are either viewed as principal buildings or accessory uses. Because this is next to a gas station, it's being used as an accessory use. So no landscaping is required. It doesn't need to come into compliance with building standards. And the only thing that we're really looking at is site work for this one. So just as a reminder to Earl, we're going to need a site plan to just show where it exists on the site. Those are my only comments.
Thank you, Aspen. Earl, you now have 10 minutes to present.
Well, this is Stephen. I just want to interrupt real quick. Aspen, can you, my recollection is that the safety permits interpretation was that landscape is not required.
Yeah, so if it's a principal building, it's required. So this one acts as an accessory use, so no landscaping is required. It still needs to be set back. There's some setback requirements for them, so it needs to be not any further from the existing use. So that's why I'm requesting a site plan just to see where it exists on the site. But we don't need any landscaping. We don't need any, you don't need to come into standard with the building design standards.
Thank you so much for the reclassifying and trying to streamline this process. I do agree that if it's an accessory and there's already existing landscaping, that makes sense that we can either add or, just keep what's existing there. And if there's nothing there, then certainly just from our standpoint, we would like to have the location as attractive as possible. So in other areas, Metairie and Kenner, that we've placed these in empty lots, we add palm trees and, commercial landscaping, to make it as inviting as we can, certainly. So I appreciate you guys making that distinction. And certainly we have submitted the site plan. Perhaps I can resend it over to Aspen. I know before we were working with Ms. Cross, and I possibly didn't send it over to Aspen also, but yeah, it's just like every other one that we've proposed. I think that it's important right now with COVID that we try to get more of these out there. This is the safest product in town. No person other than the customer touches the product. So I think it's good, and it's also important for hurricane preparedness. So we've actually run into a lot of problems trying to put more of these in New Orleans. And hopefully we can get some more out there. But yeah, our goal is to continue to try and place these in the surrounding areas and also in New Orleans, because we feel like the community could benefit from a inexpensive, clean bag of ice, since we are pretty hot in this area. So we're gonna go ahead and resend that site plan in, and do you have any other follow-up questions? Did you send that to her? Yes.
Okay, thank you for the presentations, Aspen and Earl. It seems that we don't have any committee discussion, so we're going to move right along to the next item. which is item number 9, design review docket 9421 for a property at 718 Richard Street. We have Jason Richards signed up to speak on behalf of this application. This is assigned to Joseph as the CPC staff member. So we're going to just skip right into the applicant's presentation. Jason, you now have 10 minutes to present.
All right, thank you. Just one moment. So this project is relatively early on, but we wanted to go ahead and bring it to this design advisory committee now. And I believe, I don't know if he's joined yet out. Yeah, I also have Nick Valvo, who's with the design architect Atlas Collaborative out of Atlanta. What is proposed for this block is a new movie studio. So this is at 718 Richard Street. It's currently occupied by a warehouse that is itself right across the street from Second Line Stage's current movie studios. We have a separate project that's in the process of moving the mill shop warehouses, the mill shop and warehouse functions that are previously in the warehouse building over to the parcel immediately to the east of this, which is 601 Market Street. And so the plan is to demolish the existing warehouse, which sits in essence where we're planning the new construction of the 4 sound stages, and then builds a new approximately 70,000 square foot set of sound stages. We're in front of this group because our development's over 40,000 square feet. And as I mentioned, this is fairly early on in the design phase, and we wanted to go ahead and submit with the information that we have now to get some feedback. I don't know if, I know Joseph's not on. I will say up front, we sent a little brief report about compliance with the guidelines of the zoning code for the design overlay. And our primary challenge is going to be like glazing on the ground floor. Since this is a movie studio, it's not really conducive to having any windows. But other than that, we have presented a site plan that has required parking and attempts to, although this may not be the final design, satisfy the open permeable space requirements with permeable paving as part of the base camp. And the base camp is the paved area that's immediately north of the site. And that would be for staging and loading of the movie studios from the north side.
Okay, thank you. Any committee discussion?
What's would there be any kind of natural light in this building at all? Probably
No,
not, right?
no, they're sound stages, so they're meant to be completely acoustically and lighting wise isolated.
Okay. I see that y'all are putting in trees, which I greatly appreciate. I think that will help kind of engage that pedestrian space, with the lack of windows, and kind of help buffer the visual. I would want to see a more detailed landscape plan with details and selections and everything.
Yeah, definitely, Danny. We're, as I mentioned kind of early on, I think we could pull that together and share it out.
Okay, so this parking is all accessed from Richard Street?
Correct. And I think Nick is on the line. It may not be shown in this site plan, but it's likely that we're going to need to have curb access from at least St. Thomas Street as well, because that's where some of the staging will be happening from. I know it's not shown on this current site plan.
That's correct, Jason. Yeah, the intent, I believe, if you just zoom in a little bit on the site plan, is that we would have gate access on Chippewa Street and on St. Thomas as well to allow pedestrians and semi-vehicular traffic to traverse horizontally along this, plan horizontally along the site.
Okay, and you're gonna need to detail out the whatever you're doing for the tree pits. You know, normally that it should be on the site plan. So as you develop the site plan, you know, we'd want to see what those tree pits are, where, you know, what are the size of the cutouts. It looks like you're doing full concrete sidewalks, which is fine, but just need to know what the dimensions of those tree pits are going to be, and, you know, show how wide the leftover sidewalk is going to be, all that stuff.
That's good.
Do you know how much sidewalk width you have there? What's the width of that between the edge of the building and the back of the curb? Do you know what that is right now, or what that is planned to be?
Nick, do you have that information? I can probably look it up.
Yeah, if you give me 1 minute, I can pull up the survey. I know along Chippewa it's about 6 feet or so, but I can pull up the exact numbers.
So we have, yeah, I was actually able to pull it up. We have 8.5 feet on St. Thomas Street, 11.5 on Market Street, 6 on St. Thomas, 6.2, and
You mean Chippewa?
yeah, sorry, Chippewa, thank you. And I don't have a good measurement on Richard Street, but it looks to be about 8.5 feet, similar to St. Thomas Street.
Yeah, if you have enough, and Lewis can kind of confirm it, but if you have enough room to do a 5-foot sidewalk, then I would recommend just putting in a parkway instead of doing tree pits, so that you have healthier trees.
Yeah, it looks like there's an 8-foot sidewalk existing on Chippewa, at least. And then maybe like 8 feet on Richard. So just verify that stuff. The Chippewa is definitely not 6 feet, at least from the current building.
Got it.
I was wondering if you had mentioned that y'all would have a struggle providing the ground floor transparency because of the use. And I was wondering if y'all thought of any like creative ways of maybe creating a hallway and interior walls where, at least from the street perspective, it appears that there's windows, but the interior functioning would be kind of closed off, just to create some transparency at the street level.
That's a good point, Haley. Stephen, could you navigate to the second page that shows the elevations? I think one of the things that's probably evident on the last or the third elevation there, if you look at the overall west elevation, the building's relatively tall, but it does have an offset along Market Street, and that's there primarily to deal with the energy transmission lines that are running up and down Market Street. And although all the architecture we have is concealed, if you go down to the bottom view, currently by trees, I think there's an opportunity to do something with the ground floor there along Market Street that is more interesting, because it will be for the first, I guess, 10 feet of building, a kind of one-story composition of some service areas, some covered, some fully enclosed. And you can kind of see that on the floor plan. It runs as like a ribbon on the south side of the building. So I think there's the opportunity, and Market Street is the primary elevation, essentially. St. Thomas Street is really a side street, and Richard Street isn't as trafficked. So I think there's some opportunities to do some things there along those lines.
Okay, great. Is there any further committee discussion? Okay, if not, we'll move on to our second to last item. Item number 10, design review docket 9521 for a property at 1946 Merle Street. We have Chase Kane signed up to speak on behalf of the applicant, and Aspen is the CPC staff member. As a reminder, following Aspen's presentation, Chase, you will have 10 minutes to present.
Yeah, this is a Hano site for multiple multifamily and also townhome developments at a former housing development site. And they meet the minimum lot area. They don't need to go through, I'm fairly certain they don't need to go to CPC for any additional zoning entitlements, as they meet the minimum lot area, and this area is zoned for multifamily of 6 units or more. The only thing right now, they're pretty large plans, is that we'll need a delineation of seeing which ones are townhomes and which are multifamily, just to make sure that the square footage requirements for the lot area are met. And then also just there's a little bit of a difference between how townhomes and multifamily are allowed to be built. But that's it as of now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is actually Josh Haston with LDG Development. I'll be speaking instead of Chase Kane. Thank you for your time. And we work a lot in the area, and this is the first of 2 projects that we hope to be developing with Hano in the coming months. This is 204 units composed of 192 apartments, 12 townhomes. To the best of my knowledge, it complies with the existing zoning code, as Ms. Nero mentioned. Additionally, there's a tremendous amount of community engagement involved in the front end with this project. Part of that involves just placement of buildings, playgrounds, where they want to see certain things, bike racks, you name it. There's a lot of community engagement involved on the front end. Like I said, to my knowledge, we're complying with the zoning code of SRM1. This project is being financed with LHC's LIHTC program, as well as Fano's issuance of bonds. So there's a lot of community engagement involved on that aspect, as well as additional CDBG dollars from the city of New Orleans. So it's a big community effort to try to get this project built and financed. I didn't understand the question about the townhomes, but they are fronting onto Merle Avenue. They are currently shown in clusters of 3 for a total of 12 units. Each of those townhomes is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath unit. If you don't have those plans, we can certainly share those plans with you guys for further review. Again, to my knowledge, we've actually already submitted a permit set to the city of New Orleans for their review to get additional comments and feedback. And the plan is, assuming all the financing is pulled together, to start construction in the next 3 or 4 months.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any committee discussion?
Yes. I have some questions about the landscape plan. I know there may be some questions about the architecture, but site design is really crucial to the success of this development. And there's no strict public street trees, and that I think is a mistake to really engage the sidewalk with trees on both sides. There are a lot of trees, and I greatly appreciate that. I really want to say that. The plan relies a great deal on black gum. It's the dominant tree in your list, and it's a very slow growing tree for us, for anybody. And I just want y'all to be aware of that, it is a slow growing tree. And then the same comment about avoiding monoculture on streets applies to this site plan as well. The landscape plan has, the same of all one tree along different areas. So let's, for the public street trees, we really need to avoid that. Just because if there's one disease that hits that group of trees, they're all going to be wiped out. In the landscape plan, I didn't notice where you were talking about bike racks, but I didn't notice where those were in the landscape plan and how people approach them. I also didn't see any landscape consideration for the playground area. And I was curious as to why there's only one playground when you've got a really big site. It seems like you would have several smaller play areas. They don't necessarily have to have play equipment, but places where people can sit and gather, which kind of ties into my final comment, which is you have a lot of nice green, open lawn areas, open green spaces that don't seem to be programmed. And if you don't program them, or if you want them to be super flexible and let the residents program, then that's one thing. But if you don't program them now with sidewalks and ways for people to move through them, the residents will program them for you. And so I just want y'all to be cognizant of that. It kind of worries me about only having one playground, just because then kids are having to go all the way through. I get, it brings everybody together into one spot, but it seems like you could achieve a lot with multiple play areas and multiple kind of recreational outdoor experiences. It's really just shrubs around the buildings and trees everywhere with grass. But I really do want to focus on, or I would like for y'all to focus on putting in public street trees, and that can use some of the trees that you already have there, but just offset them and put some in the public realm on one side of the sidewalk and on the other side of the sidewalk for the development.
Thank you for your comments, sir. We will make the comments known about the street trees to our landscape architect with SEF engineers. Regarding the bike racks, I believe they're shown on the site plan, looking through the item 10 document to make sure. But they are within like walking distance of the buildings. And again, that was a request that came out of the community meetings wanting covered bike racks. I mean, obviously code requires some covered bike racks, but we tried to go a little bit above requirement to make sure that comment was addressed. Regarding the playgrounds, that is typically tied back to the programs that we're using to finance these. We've done developments like this all over the country, and in our experiment, and we got over 18,000 units. All of them are about this size or bigger. And one playground seems to be sufficient with the size of the developments at this size. Had this project been, 350, 400 units, then absolutely I would agree with you. But I think that one sufficient playground should be good.
I was looking at it from a perspective of a lack of site amenities like pedestrian scaled site lighting or uplighting at the houses, or site furniture, creating spaces where people can sit along the walkways, creating seating areas where people can gather together, and that would have like shade coverings, just little extra touches that, since this is a large multifamily area, that would go a long way in creating an environment for people, a healthy living environment.
Thank you for those comments. We'll most definitely share them again with our landscape architect and civil engineer to address those.
trash cans, stuff like that, just some site amenities and furnishings and lighting.
Yeah, what's the experience as people move through this space, how they live there, how they walking through, as people come to visit, as they try to get some recreation. You're exactly right, Haley. What's the experience? Where do I throw my trash? Where do I sit down to tie my shoe? Where's a good shady spot? Where's a good sunny spot?
If it's school-age children, do you have a place where they would be gathering to catch the school bus? Things like that.
Yes, thank you. And I didn't mention it very well, but part of this project also includes a community clubhouse area that has, I think, 1,000 or 1,200 square foot of just open community space that would allow tenants or children to gather in the afternoons or before school, as well as we are intending the primary bus loading zone to be at the corner of Merle and Wall, given that that is a boulevard as opposed to the southern end of Vespasian. That's just 2-lane road. So we thought it might be a better way to board, as well as when we've driven the area in the afternoons. Wall Boulevard seems to be the primary walking route for many of the children that live in the community.
Okay, it seems like a great project.
Thank you.
A couple questions about the buildings themselves. On the side elevations of, let's see, trying to figure out which building this is, one of the big wide ones. There's a sort of a horizontal band between the second and third floors. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, great question. So that is, that's different colored hardy board. That's to break up the visual monotony, so you don't have the same giant wall of just one single color. So that's what that is. It is hardy siding.
Okay. And what is the roof pitch on those buildings?
Are you talking about the angle of the roof pitch?
The roof pitch.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a very common roof pitch. It's not overly steep, and that's helping with ongoing maintenance as well as trying to prevent too much wind shear from gale force winds that New Orleans tends to experience. So it was very intentional.
Yeah, I guess I'm just worried it looks, maybe it looks like a 5 on 12, and I'm wondering if it might be better maybe as a 6 or 7 on 12. So it's looking pretty low. And my other question was, I think you've done a good job with the, larger elevations, the length of the building in terms of breaking up the massing. I just feel like these side elevations, like on type A, on the left and right, the moves you're making sort of emphasize the horizontality of it. And that perhaps that horizontal banding is not really working very well for you. I understand you're trying to break up the wall, but it seems to just be re-emphasizing how wide and squat those floors are. I think it would be helpful to make that one single material for the second and third floor. And also perhaps consider breaking up these paired windows so that they're individual windows, so you don't have such a low window to wall ratio. So the main points are that there's not enough window openings on that side elevation. Its reading is very wide and squat and flat. And, you know, some small moves could help make it look a little less so. Those would be my comments.
Is there a site plan that shows us which type buildings are located in which locations?
There is, let me flip back through. I can tell you real quick, 1 second. So on page 6 of the PDF, there's a site plan. The townhomes are fronting Myrtle Avenue. Those are 2-story.
But there's no plan anywhere in here that tells us, that has a key that says this is type A, this is the clubhouse, this is the other building, right?
To my knowledge, I know there's not that specific detail, but I can point out which buildings are which if you want.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, this is Chase Kane with LDG, everyone. Good afternoon. There is a plan. I believe it's A041 on the architectural set. It would not be on the landscape or the civil set.
Do we have that plan somewhere?
Yes, it should be in your packet.
If someone can give me a page number, I can go to it.
I don't think it's in the reason I'm asking is because it wasn't in the packet that we got to review. And so I had no idea which buildings go where, because you've got in type building B, you've got the ends of your buildings don't have any openings at all. There's no windows on either end. So I was curious as to what those conditions are and what do they face. I mean, I see the clubhouse. I could figure out where the clubhouse went. I could figure out where the townhouses went, but between the difference between A and B, I have no idea.
The A and B buildings, sorry, the smaller square footage ones are the 2 interior buildings that front on the eastern portion of the side.
That really doesn't help me a whole lot unless I'm going to sit there and try to calculate. I mean, I get it. I'm assuming that they're the 2 in the middle right there below on this site plan below the playground area. I'm assuming that those 2 buildings are B. Is that what the deal is? And then the
Yes.
rest are A?
Yes.
And what kind of what is there any connection to other developments in the area, or is this all standalone?
This would be all standalone.
So along that Cypress Acres subdivision side, that's a separate street, right? Or is that just a property edge?
This actually covers the street. So I think they're removing the street, right?
So we would not be removing a street, but that street is unimproved. It's, to my knowledge, it has not been used in some time.
I mean, it looks like based on where 3405 is along Wall, that your sidewalk would be on top of that street.
I mean, is that a public street, or was that just a street that was put in for the previous development? It shows part of it being listed as Rose Lane, maybe.
That street is part of the Hano property.
Okay.
Rose Lane is a private road, as well as Floral Lane that are, and we're also in the process of being replanning this property. There was numerous parcels, and we're going through a minor subdivision to consolidate them all into one individual parcel.
So that's just going to be a sidewalk along that, kind of along that edge, the property edge between that and whatever the back of that Cypress Acres subdivision is. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
That sidewalk would be along the grass in Cypress Acres subdivision. Like it would be on the eastern side of the Shade Tree Lane Road.
Right.
Is what I'm getting. So you'd be removing that road and putting the sidewalk and landscaping on top of it. Is what I'm getting. So it's just like a sidewalk with no street, just kind of against the next subdivision, like a path. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think it is part of an internal, I think of it as internal circulation that doesn't have to be around parking, you know. I mean, it's going to be great in terms of people being able to walk around, kind of around the block and have a walk path. And that may be something to look at in terms of, that's part of the experience I was talking about. How do you make this perimeter walking path into an amenity? And how does it bring this development into context with the rest of the community around it? And how can it can become the centerpiece?
Yeah, I mean, the weird thing is that it's being put right along that property. You know, if you build that path right against that property line, you have no control over what happens on the other side of the property line. You know, it could be like a chain link fence the next day. It could be the back of, another property or something. Whatever. I mean, you can only work with one side of it, really.
Yep.
And I mean, as far as what it's like to have buildings facing that, like the backside of those buildings facing, I don't know, seems a little odd. Or at least it's odd to have the sidewalk all the way against that. I'm seeing looks like you got maybe fire hydrants in that alignment right now, based on the plans, or at least a street light or something. Just generally, I'd say the sidewalk plan leaves a lot to be desired. You got missing sidewalk connections in places where it just doesn't cross the street for whatever reason. All these 90-degree turns in the middle of open space is just lazy design, really. I mean, really lazy civil work. Or maybe even architectural work. But, any of these places, you could at least have curved intersection, curved corners. You got so much space. All you have to do is add a radius or something. Or, have gentler alignments where these things intersect, or add like a third leg, so that people can just walk down. They're going to be, they want to just walk in a straight line. There's no reason they should have to walk out of their way so far just to try to turn left. And you can see that around the play area, where there's no kind of paths connecting it. There's no paths through there. So it's very hard to walk from, the kind of west area to the east area without going very far out of your way. So it just seems like that's something that could be planned for a little better. If you go to the southwest corner, the ramp design is, that's pretty iffy, where it kind of tees in that southwest corner. So these are just examples, but, leaving a sidewalk flat for 10 feet with the street, isn't a very good pedestrian experience. And in an open site, it seems very unnecessary. And then, you were talking about the bus stop. So there is a bus stop on Vespasian. Were you suggesting that that stop would be moved somehow?
No, I believe there are two stops. I believe there's one on Vespasian as well as on Wall Boulevard.
You think there's a stop on Wall Boulevard?
I believe that. I believe there is.
I don't believe there is.
Okay.
I don't believe there's a bus route on Wall Boulevard. So I think you just got the one on Vespasian. So it would be good to treat that with some kindness, or maybe even move it to the center of the site, and dress it up a little bit. Might be a good thing. You're kind of the only game in town, so I'm sure RTA would respond to that if you wanted to do something. Yeah, I would just look at these. I would take a real hard look at just making this sidewalk area a little gentler. It basically is designed like some kind of like 1,000-foot long strip mall in terms of the sidewalk design. It's not really like a walking path or anything. It's just basically like a parking access path. So in a big site like that, that's a pretty huge missed opportunity, I would say.
All right, just so I can make that comment to our landscape architect, are you referring to the sidewalk on the eastern boundary?
The entire boundary.
All of the internal sidewalk is pretty bad. It really is just a strip mall sidewalk.
It's not how people walk, and I think that was what Haley was getting at, what Lewis is getting at, what I'm getting at. This is not designed for people to move around and live in. This is just an engineering response to, we've got to place this many units and we've got to place this many parking spaces, and we've got to have a playground, and we need internal streets. And that's what we've got.
Daniel, add me to those comments too. I agree. It looks, just like a complex, monolithic, generic. It just doesn't feel in any way special.
No, and your stone crosswalks aren't going to help that at all. I would get rid of the paver crosswalks or whatever you're doing there, or at least don't try to rely on it for any kind of experience, because it's not going to achieve anything with a site plan like this.
It's a great neighborhood. It may not look like it right now, but it's a place that needs to become lively again. It's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I still, I really think that the sidewalk in the back is, I don't know. To me, it's not great. If it was supposed to be great, or if it's supposed to be nice at all, it's going to need to be wider than 5 feet. 5 feet is going to look ridiculously small in space like that. So something like 8 feet would be better. If it's going to try to look like a path. You're basically showing 5-foot sidewalks everywhere, but again, with all this space, that just comes off looking really cheap.
Alrighty. Well, thank you everyone for getting that point across. I'm sure Aspen will be able to work with Joshua, and we can get some refinement on these sidewalk areas and the internal areas. So are there any?
Yeah, and just a comment, I can, if you guys want to just do like a mock-up of like what you would propose, like changing some of the sidewalks, I can show it to like Lewis and DPW, and we can pass it around before you guys do like a full site plan, like a full change, so that it doesn't slow down your process.
Thank you.
We could also integrate a few comments if needed from our end, right?
Yes. So right now we were just kind of doing the discussion. We'll have our 5-minute recess, and when we come back, we'll do a vote, and we can list some specific provisos.
Was item 11 removed from the agenda?
No, that's actually our last one for today. Item number 11. There's design review docket number yet. We're still waiting for the application to be submitted. But just for some background, this will be, they will be submitting for a variance. It's Warren Easton School at 3026 Canal Street. They're going to expand their campus into another existing structure. And with that change of use, there's going to be a different parking requirement. So this will be in stages. The first one will be to request a waiver of those parking requirements. And then later on down the road, they may submit a conditional use to allow parking in a residential area. And they'll likely update their campus development plan. So we have Miles Granderson signed up to speak on behalf of this application. And the staff is not yet assigned for this case, but we have Stephen here to answer any questions. And he did, one thing we wanted to point out was that there's two sets of plans. The one that we're looking at today, it only shows the on-site parking. And then at a later date, we may reconsider this project to show the parking in the rear. Stephen, did you have anything you wanted to mention for this?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that this is happening as a prerequisite to a BZA submission. So it's, you know, I think what we're looking for is an endorsement that the design is sufficient enough that they can proceed with the BZA application. You know, it doesn't need to be ready for final approval. We just need a conceptual endorsement that they're heading in the right direction. We will then move it to the BZA, depending on whether the BZA's variance is granted. It may or may not need to come back before you, depending on whether any site design changes will be.
Okay, thank you, Miles. You now have 10 minutes to present.
Sure, this is Miles Granderson representing the applicant. We also have Dominic and Ryan from Manning Architects on as well to help with the any technical questions that there may be. This building has been vacant since several years prior to Hurricane Katrina. It is located on the corner of, or not in the corner, but in between South Saucedo and South Gayoso on Canal Street, directly across the street from the Warren Easton High School. It's presently there and been there since the 1930s. Warren Easton is, as we all know, one of the more successful and beneficial high schools in the city, particularly public high schools, and they are looking to add this building across the street to their school site, and it would be the site for ninth graders, so high school freshmen. If you look at the site plan that's on the screen right now, what you'll see is you'll see the existing building on Canal Street. You'll also see the existing parking lot on the Canal Street, and then 5 lots to the rear. There is some additional process involved to figure out how and if those 5 lots in the rear will be added. And there could be some parking, and that could change the configuration of the parking that you see on the Canal Street frontage now. But for now, what we know we can use without further process, absent the variance, is this Canal Street frontage. So this is what we're looking at here. But that could that configuration could well change with additional city approvals, et cetera. The building will not change in terms of its envelope, its footprint. It is what it is. It will be redeveloped and remodeled to clean it up and also to fit with a school building. There's not a whole lot more really that needs to be said on that front, but what I will do is I'm going to pass the ball now to Ryan or to Dominic if they have anything they want to add before we get into questions. All right, so hearing nothing, I guess we'll move on. We're glad to.
This is Ryan. Hey, this is Ryan. I'd like the only I guess compliment to what Miles was saying is there is a little bit of a fifth floor addition that's been in review with SHPO to kind of build out the fifth floor that had I guess maybe some previous rooftop terrace area, but it's now going to be enclosed as classroom space.
As Ryan mentioned, we have received direction from SHPO and preliminary approval that the design that we have currently is what they're expecting to see.
What are what are you going to use the 5 lots for?
The 5 lots that are in the back would be used, and I don't know if we've got an image of there. So if it's showing on the screen now, what would happen is you would have the existing ingress on Canal Street that you can see, and the parking that's shown on the screen right now is the existing parking setup.
Mm-hmm.
So you would have ingress on Canal, but you'd also have ingress on South Salcedo, which would then allow for egress from either direction on South Gayoso, and would allow for potentially additional parking on those 2 lots that front South Salcedo. The lots that would be the 2 skinny lots in the back going towards Cleveland. There has been a concept of maybe some covered outdoor dining, particularly right now, given the sort of moment we're in and considering outdoor dining and other things like that. That may or may not end up on the final plan. As of now, other than that, it's unprogrammed for those 2 lots on Cleveland.
And what are the 2 driveways for on South Salcedo?
2 driveways. I think there's 1 driveway on South Salcedo.
It's showing 2.
The second driveway is dumpster access. It's not shown on this plan, but we have the driveway on the right is for dumpster access. There's going to be an enclosure there for a dumpster.
Okay. And then y'all will do the landscape plan and the tree protection plan and everything once you get to that point.
Yes.
I have a question regarding just movement of students across Canal Street and how that's going to be handled and what the timeframes of that will be and the frequency. And my other question is, considering, when schools are operating across large, busy streets, we ended up with a bridge over Main Street or Jesuit, and are we creating a problem that will then in the future justify having to lock down a campus and create an enclosed path of movement from one part of the campus to the other to protect the safety of the students? And has that been considered in this application, and what the plan for that is?
So one thing that's a little different here is that what this building will be is it'll be the 9th grade academy, using that sort of new charter school lingo, the academy, but it will be where the 9th graders go to start their day and to end their day. I'd imagine certainly there would be some cross between the sides of Canal Street, but it is distinguishable from the Jesuit circumstance in that the way the Jesuit campus was set up, students in multiple grades were going to be crisscrossing all day, every day, as sort of part of the way the school was set up and the school flow. Whereas in this case, if you're in 9th grade, you're pretty much going to be on that side of the street. And if you're not in 9th grade, you're going to be on the other side of the street.
So there's a cafeteria and gymnasium and everything.
There's not a gymnasium, there is a cafeteria.
Okay. So how often in a day do you think that they would be crossing?
I guess we could get that information. I don't know offhand, but there will be not only will be classrooms in this building, there will also be the cafeteria on the ground floor, but there'll also be some office space here too. So this building is designed to pretty much encapsulate the entire ninth grade experience. You're right. I do imagine there will be times when they have to go across the street. I don't know how much that is. If Dominic has any information there, I'd be glad for him to chime in. But
we haven't gone into that kind of detail with Warren Easton, but I would imagine maybe once a day for physical education, if that's something that happens daily. I'm not sure what the student schedule entails, but I would say for physical education, access to the gym, as well as school events that may take place in the gym. But as Miles mentioned, 99% of their day is going to be on site here at the academy.
And how many students are in the ninth grade?
They've got in the school in the entire school now, they've got around 900 in the entire school, so that will grow a little bit. There will be Dominic, are there 3 floors of classrooms here?
There's 5 stories, 4 of which are classrooms.
There's 16 classrooms that will be here. So there'll be 16 classrooms, students in 16 classrooms.
Is there a light at this intersection? No. There's no light.
Correct.
So
there's crosswalks identified at Salcedo and Gayoso, but no light, no traffic light.
Seems concerning to me as a plan from a safety standpoint. And I guess I just hope that there are plans in place to ensure the students' safety on Canal Street, crossing at least back and forth once a day.
Yeah, Eleanor, I can speak to that a little bit. As any time any high school or elementary school expands, they have to submit a campus development plan to the City Planning Commission. What that includes is a traffic circulation plan. So it's, it's largely about where does vehicular circulation occur, where does drop off occur, but it does contemplate curbside usage, pedestrian usage, etc. The school can supplement that by, explaining how crosswalks are managed and the like. So, I think it's a reality of Warren Easton expanding across Canal Street that some of this probably isn't going to be avoidable in terms of kids walking across the street and the need to accommodate that. But there is a structure in place for dealing with that to some extent. So I don't want to promise that it can make it so that traffic circulation is not, or pedestrian circulation is not noticeable at all, not problematic at all, but it is intended to deal with these sorts.
Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with, schools having expansions across the street, provided the security of it's managed reasonably. It's when that across the street situation then becomes a justification for building pedestrian walkways, across urban corridors. That's what I have a problem with. So just wanted to have that discussion before it gets ahead of itself.
Understood. Miles, as far as is there any desire to, because I assume that the campus plan will probably need to touch on this, is there any desire to have bridges, walkways, anything of that nature?
No, that's not in the plans. And again, I think one of the key distinctions here is that instead of there being, in the case of Jesuit, 2 parts of the campus across the street from each other, where near all students are crossing multiple times a day, regardless of which grade they're in, and each of them are crossing multiple times a day. In this case, if you are in 10th, 11th, 12th, you will never have any reason to cross the street. And the only students that would have any reason to cross the street would be in 9th grade. But again, their cafeteria their administration. So if you're in ninth grade, you get sent to see the vice principal that's going to be in that building, so there's not going to be much reason to go across the street. And so when there is, it will be, limited and readily able to be done in a very controlled fashion. But yeah, no bridge.
For now.
Doesn't seem like they would cross in the middle of the street though, in the middle of the block to get into the main door of the high school.
I'm sure the administrators would frown on that quite heavily.
Isn't it something that can be done with like crossing guards and having time? I mean, if you know the schedules, then they can be timed and they can have crossing guards and deal with crossing traffic with that way. Isn't that part of what y'all are asking for, is like a traffic plan for pedestrian students?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably need to move on because this meeting's tending to run on. I just want to make one last statement that the school is a by right use, which means that the question of whether the school can exist here is not, not something the committee can really speak to. It's just a matter of the design, and specifically the site design that's being proposed. Again, this is going to go through the BZA, and the BZA, I think, can probably widen their lens to consider some of that to a certain extent. But our scope is just narrowed to site design.
And the intent is to use this site plan that's on the screen, or is it to use the existing some other thing with a back road or something? I didn't catch that, but I didn't see it in the plan, so I'm seeing like two different things.
So the hope is that the plan that was shown briefly a few seconds ago or a few minutes ago,
yeah,
that would be the ultimate plan. Not being at the stage where we have that approval yet, as of right now. So we go to BZA. BZA is complete. We would be able to do, if BZA, approves, we'd be able to do this plan here. What we'd be looking for additionally is either through determinations from zoning administration or through conditional use, the ability to use those back lots in the way shown. So ideally, at the end of the day, the sort of double-barreled diagonal parking that exists today on the Canal Street lot would stay, but we are not 100% sure we're going to be able to do that. So in abundance of caution, we are showing what we know we can do if we get the variance. Regardless, there would be a need for parking variance because the parking requirement is so heavy for secondary education, 4 per classroom, plus administrative space as well too. And these are ninth graders who can't drive.
All right, I just want to say that basically what I'm getting at is that either way, in either site plan, I would want you to straighten out that driveway. All right, it used to go around some crepe myrtle apparently, but even if you were to keep the diagonal parking for the time being, we would want to see that driveway modified so that it was 90 degrees to Canal Street. Okay.
Any further discussion? If not, that concludes the presentation of dockets, and we will now begin the 5-minute recess, after which time public comments will be read into the record. We will return at 12:28. righty, the digital public comment forum is now closed, and we will begin with the consideration of dockets, including the public comment portion of the meeting. We did not receive any public comments, so at this time, we'll just start with item number 2, which was design review 4321 for the Mason Hall at 3200 St. Bernard.
Is this going for any other approvals, or is this ready for permitting?
This is just for a design review. It does not go to the planning commission.
Okay. Eleanor, did you want to see revised architectural plans? Or is this something you think staff can do?
I mean, I guess I would like to hear what the other members think. I mean, it seems like they're pretty far away from something that's approvable.
Yep.
But, you know, if it's something that others feel could be handled at the staff level, I'm willing to go with that.
I think Lewis, I'm assuming Lewis is back. He may not be back yet.
I'm back.
Okay. I mean, you and I and Eleanor had the most comments, so I didn't know if you wanted to do it, have them come back with these revisions that we've requested for site design, landscape, and architecture, or do you want staff to handle it? Who's the staff person for this?
This is for Joseph.
Okay.
It doesn't matter to me. I can do it at staff level.
Okay. Would you want Joseph to talk to you, Eleanor? You think?
I mean, if we want to just go ahead and approve it, provided they work with the staff regarding massing and windows.
Yeah, I think we can I'll make a motion to approve, subject to working with staff. That includes HDLC or Eleanor on massing and the windows, site design considerations on-site and off-site with Lewis and DPW, and Parkways review and approval for the public landscape.
Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways, subject to staff level review, working with HDLC, DPW, and Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by HDLC. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 3 is for design review 7821 for the Berman Park Aquatic Facility. At this time, would the committee make a motion?
What's the schedule on this one in terms of where do they have to go next?
Again, this is another design review only. It's actually DAC only. It's a DAC only project because it's a public facility.
And Miguel, you're on here, right?
Yeah,
I know it's.
I think they want to put out the building permit while they put it out to bid, so it may be something that they want to get through the permit process.
I'm okay with the pool and everything. I'm not okay with the landscape plan and the tree protection because I haven't seen them yet. Those revised plans were never sent over here. I don't know how y'all feel about the architecture. I was okay with it. I think it's a good response.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good design, and I just think that they need to integrate the adjacent roadways and parking. I think it's just something that should happen anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the wayfinding is going to be crucial on that to make sure that everybody understands how they have to go.
Right.
I will make a motion to approve, subject to review and approval by Parkways for the landscape. and tree protection plans.
Is that sufficient?
Well, I don't know if you want to add in your note, Miguel, about the parking within the entire site.
Well, I think it's really wayfinding, parking. I mean, who would review that for approval to make sure it happens?
Capital projects. So we're just going to make the recommendation to capital projects that they
Okay.
make finding.
Okay, let's do that.
So we have a motion by Parks and Parkways for approval, subject to two provisos. Parks and Parkways for the landscape plan and tree protection, and a recommendation to add wayfinding. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second by capital projects. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 4 is for zoning docket 7321 for the warehouse at 6600 Franklin Avenue.
I think the commentary was to route the lower level garage looking doors around the corner for the applicant to look at the lakeside corner. And I've already actually sent the landscape review comments to the applicant. But what was the other question, Miguel and Eleanor?
I think we want to see a revision of elevations to incorporate additional fenestration on part of the lower level and to look at the materiality of the two large expanses of vertical mass at the two elevations, the front and the side elevation, and try to integrate the material in the rear. And sorry, I'm being so vague. I should be looking at the site plan to be more specific.
What's the time frame on this? I see it's a zoning docket 7321. This is, when did they go for their conditional use?
They will be going to CBC on September 28th, and then council approval or council consideration will follow. So it's going to be another 6 months or so before this goes to permitting at least.
And so there's time for any of these revisions to come back to DAC before the EZA or for the conditional.
So they can come back after it goes to CPC, but they can't come back before it goes to CPC based on the way the timing works.
All right, that's kind of what I was asking. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no sense in them coming back to us after it goes to. Mikhail, I'll let you make the motion, or Eleanor, but I just want to have the landscape plan approved by Parkways and the tree protection.
I'll make the motion, but Haley, do you have the gist of it? Basically everything that that Danny said.
I was hoping I could list it out.
Danny's so good at making the motions. I'm sorry, Haley, what did you say?
It would be best if you listed it out.
Danny, I didn't make notes of what you said.
Well, for me, for Parkways, it's we need to see the tree protection plan in details and the other requested revisions that have been sent to the developer.
Yeah, so Haley, I think that was turn the increased transparency on the ground floor at the corner to line up with what's on the upper levels, and then look at color texture revisions to the large vertical components on the rear, I think, and the side to better integrate them into the design. And Valerie, who's the planner handling this, was not able to attend the meeting, but we do have a YouTube recording of this, so she can certainly review that and incorporate that into the staff report.
Yeah, and there was adding fenestration to the lower level of on the drive to Rouse's elevation as well from Eleanor.
Okay, is that the Franklin Avenue side?
The north elevation, the lake side, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, we have a motion by Capital Projects for approval, subject to these provisos. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by HDLC. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 6 is for the Affordable Housing Plan Development at 1111 Milan Street.
Was there any public comment?
We received no public comment.
What's the next step for this project?
The same as the previous one, I believe. No, actually, it'll be at
No, you're correct, Haley. It's going to CPC late September and then council after that.
So it doesn't go to CPT until late September?
The CBC will potentially act on September 28th. The report needs to be completed 2 weeks before that, basically. So it may be possible for it to come back, but we would have to look at the timing. I don't know that we can guarantee that possible.
Do you think that's enough time for the applicant to get some of these revisions done? Because I know there were some, I mean, I have some issues with the streetscape, but I know there were issues with the access to the buildings, the stairwells. That's a kind of a big architectural revision.
Maybe we can do that by, I mean, if you want to do kind of a conceptual action now, we can probably handle the rest of it via email.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Conceptually, I'm okay with the stairwells. I agree with Eleanor and Miguel that I don't think they really work. Kind of a bridging stair is kind of strange and rather beach-like. So we could conceptually approve it, you say, and then have the details worked out at the staff level? Then I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways for conceptual approval with a second by HDLC. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 7 is for zoning docket 8521 for the expansion of an existing bar.
I think there was some, there's still some site details to work out, if I remember correctly. Lewis had pointed out some detailing that needed to be resolved. There's going to be a street project, so there will be later landscaping, but they're not required. They do need to protect the existing tree, and the driveway is being closed off, but that might be covered in the FEMA project. Is that about it?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay. Make a motion to approve, subject to submission of tree protection.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Parks and Parkways and a second by HDLC. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 8 is for the ice machine at 6501 Morrison Avenue.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Parks and Parkways and a second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Item number 9 is design review docket 9421 for the movie studio at 718 Richard Street.
I make a motion to conceptually approve this. I know that they've got some details to work out with parking access and sidewalks and street trees and the ground floor architectural activation through transparency on Market Street. That was a vague kind of.
We have a motion by Parks and Parkways for conceptual approval subject to those revisions. Do we have a second?
Second by CPC.
Second by CPC. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and the motion passes. Item number 10 is for the multifamily development design review 9521 at 1946 Merle Street.
I think we had quite a few. This one, I'm not sure what the time frame is on it.
This is a design review, so it's not going to the commission.
Perfect. I would like for this to come back because we had so many questions about the end conditions of each on the facades of the buildings, in terms of windows and the pitch of the roof for the buildings, and especially the site considerations in terms of what's the landscape experience, what are the widths of the sidewalks, what's the appropriate width of the sidewalks, how it connects the buildings, how it connects the spaces, street trees, the overall site experience, also providing the details for where the site bike parking is. I did not find that on any plans. Labeling the building so we know which building is what type, and basically providing a much more detailed understanding of what this experience is for the people who live there, for the people who visit.
May I just suggest that Aspen had offered to work with the applicant at a staff level via email. I know there's a lot of changes, but I think we were very specific about what we would like to see, so it may not need to return to DAC.
Yeah, I have no problem sending these to people if that's easier through email.
I would then condition it on getting approval from DPW and from HDLC and from Parkways before it goes into permitting.
Okay, so we have a motion by Parks and Parkways for approval, subject to the mentioned design changes and staff level review with the agencies, DPW, HDLC, and Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Capital Projects. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. And the final item is number 11 for the Warren Easton school expansion.
This is also just a design review at this point.
So this is a design review that's going to come right before they're submitting a variance application.
I just want to see a tree protection plan
Okay.
and a landscape plan. So I don't know if that needs to be staff level or if that needs to be something that comes back. This is all under, Miles, you're still on. This is all under, this is going through SHPO, right?
Yeah, I think Dominic, the architect, spoke to that earlier, that's being reviewed by SHPO. Yeah, I'll let him speak to that more if he has anything else.
Yes, the owner will be seeking tax credits. So it will be reviewed by SHPO.
Okay. I think the site plan issues and tree protection issues can be resolved at the staff level, but they just need to make sure to consult with Lewis, myself, and whoever else needs to hear it or see it.
Okay, thank you.
Motion.
Motion by Parks and Parkways for approval, subject to the submission of a tree protection and landscaping plan and staff level review with DPW and Parks and Parkways. Do we have a second?
Second by CPC.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, this concludes our August DAC meeting. Thank you and see y'all next month.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.